A high school student in Massachusetts might have just been killed by a tortilla chip. 14-year-old Harris Waloba died just hours after a friend gave him what's claimed to be the spiciest chip on the planet. The challenge, which is going around on social media right now, sees a person eat the chip and see how long they can go without drinking. Anyone who goes longer than an hour ultimately defeats the challenge. But soon after Harris ate the chip, he reportedly complained of stomach pains and fainted. His mother picked him up from school and said that he felt a little bit better when he got home. But before he was about to go to basketball practice, he passed out yet again and was rushed to hospital. He was pronounced dead shortly after. The father claims that Harris had no pre-existing conditions or allergies, and both his parents are convinced that it was the chip that killed him. Now, while there have been reports of people needing medical attention after eating the chip, if his parents are right, Harris would be the first confirmed fatality. However, an autopsy is being carried out to get to the bottom of it. So the question is, should the chip be banned, or is this only going to make the challenge more popular?
The most wanted man in the UK, a suspected terrorist who served in the British Army, has escaped jail after sneaking out of the kitchen and clinging to a delivery van. Police have launched an urgent manhunt for ex-soldier Daniel Abed Khalif, 21, after he fled HMP Wandsworth, South London. Cops issued an alert to UK ports and airports about his escape, with passengers now stuck in long queues. It is believed that Khalif is most likely still in the London area, but he has connections to the northwest and could be anywhere in the UK. Khalif was last seen wearing the uniform of a white t-shirt, red and white checkered trousers, and brown steel-toe cap boots, cops confirmed. The ex-soldier is accused of planting fake bombs at a UK military base. He is of slim build, has short brown hair, and is around 6 feet 2 inches tall. The Met Police confirmed an alert has been put out by terror cops to police forces and law enforcement agencies across the country, including those at ports and borders. It was alleged Khalif left 3 canisters with wires at Maud Stafford in January this year. Khalif has links to the Kingston area, with the Met Police believing he is most likely still in London. People have been urged not to approach him and to call 999 instead.
Oh no. No, 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 silly, to dry it. But it exploded, and they were both found dead.
Chris Watts has reported to see the ghosts of his family haunting his prison cell. He had a dream of his daughter Cece dancing beside a chair in his prison cell. Ever since he had that dream, things move in his prison cell by themselves with no explanation. What I'm about to say is going to make you sick. Chris Watts actually wishes that his family would come to visit him in dreams more often because he misses them and he wishes that they were still here. A former cellmate of Chris Watts has came out and said that Chris Watts blames his mistress for him murdering his family, and that if it wasn't for her, his family would still be alive and happy. Even more disturbing, Chris Watts said to a source that he wants to present himself as a good guy so he can get out of prison and prove to everybody that he's really not that bad. I don't see him getting out of prison at all, and hopefully he never makes it out.
This is the mysterious death of Brittany Murphy. On December 20th, 2009, Brittany collapsed in the home that she shared with her husband and mother. She died at 10:04 a.m. after going in cardiac arrest. Her death was ruled natural, with the cause being pneumonia, iron deficiency, and multiple drug intoxication. Just 5 months later, her husband was found dead of the same causes. It was said that toxic mold could have contributed to their death, but that's never been proven. Brittany's father claimed that a private toxicology report revealed toxic metals in her hair. These metals could be linked to rat poison. The symptoms they had leading up to their death also were consistent with rat poison symptoms. Her father believes that Brittany's mother was to blame. Before Brittany died, her mother Sharon had her write a will and put everything in her name. Her mother also quickly sold a lot of Brittany's stuff in auctions. There's also a theory that they were poisoned by the government. It claims that Brittany was friends with whistleblower Julia Davis and got caught up. The couple was apparently convinced that the government was spying on them. What do you think?
Today I googled who has served the longest prison sentence in history, and number 1 is still going. So at number 5 is Joseph Legion, who served 67 years and 54 days and was released earlier this year. He was sentenced at 15 years old for murder and was released at age 83. At number 4 we have John Phillips, who served 68 years, 236 days. He was convicted in 1952 for the rape of a 5-year-old girl and was released in March 2021 on parole. Taking third by only 9 days more is Paul Giadel Jr., who served 68 years, 245 days. He was incarcerated from 1911, age 17, and then released in 1980 at 86. Once released, he died in a nursing home 7 years later at age 93. In second place, and the only non-American on the list, is an Aussie man named Charles Fossard. He was sentenced to life after murdering an elderly man and stealing his boots. Charles died when he was still incarcerated at the age of 92, making this the longest served prison sentence in the world because number 1 is still going. And in at that number 1 spot is Francis Clifford Smith. He served currently 72 years and 90-something days, and I know the chart says 71, but it's old. He was sentenced to death for the murder of a night watchman during a robbery at a yacht club. His sentence was changed to life in prison in 1954, only 2 hours before his scheduled execution.
These 5 men have vanished after boarding a submersible to visit the Titanic. Last Sunday, 5 people boarded a submersible, which is kind of like a submarine in Newfoundland, Canada, but has lost contact with the operator only 1 hour and 45 minutes into the trip. The Titan was built for tourists to visit the wreck of the Titanic, which is located 12,400 feet underwater. It has 96 hours of oxygen available, which means that the people inside will run out of oxygen by Thursday. The Titan can reach 13,123 feet underwater, and it's operated using what looks like a modified game controller. The 5 people who boarded the Titan are known to be wealthy businessmen as well as a 19-year-old boy. But what's interesting to me is that everyone had to sign a waiver accepting that this submersible can potentially cause their death. The Titan only started taking people down in 2021, and it's been reported that there's been so many issues with this process. And keep in mind that it's not cheap to do this excursion. Everyone paid $250,000. Nevertheless, I hope the Titan is found and everyone is brought back home safe. This is the FBI's greatest unsolved mystery. On November 24th, 1971, a man under the name of Dan Cooper booked a flight from Portland, Oregon to Seattle, Washington. On the flight, Dan was wearing a business suit and carried a briefcase and a paper bag. Around 3 p.m., after the plane had taken off, Dan handed a note to the flight attendant and demanded that she read it because he had a bomb. He asked her to sit next to him and write a note and take it to the captain. The note said the following: I want $200,000 by 5 p.m. in cash. I want 2 back parachutes and 2 front parachutes. When we land, I want a fuel truck ready to refuel. No funny stuff or I'll do the job. When the flight landed in Seattle, Dan allowed the 36 passengers off the plane in exchange for the money, but he demanded that the captain and some of the crew members to stay on the plane and fly to Mexico. Somewhere between Seattle and Nevada, Dan jumped out of the plane with his parachute and money and was never seen again. The FBI made the serial numbers of the bills public in efforts to find the money and potentially find Dan. Years went by and Dan could not be located, but in 1980, a young boy found $5,800 of the same bills at Tana Bar in Vancouver, Washington.
You should never go to Chuck E. Cheese, and here is why, part 2. If you haven't already done so, go watch part 1. As I was saying, the children were just playing with Chucky until he did something that made them run away and never come back again. And after the parents saw this, they immediately ran inside to see what was happening. But when the parents went inside, they saw Chucky without his mask on. And you won't believe who was under the mask. But before I tell you, I just found this really cool app that pays you money just to play games. It's called Blitz, and as you can see, I've already made $450 from it. So if you guys want to get this app, all you have to do is just click this link in my bio to get it. Anyways, the person under the mask was an insane looking man. And immediately after seeing this man, the parents called the cops. And when the police arrived, they noticed the man under the suit was a known serial killer. Cops then proceeded to arrest this man and he was never seen again. Like and follow for more crazy stories.
Jamie Osuna was serving life in prison for torturing and murdering a woman in 2011. He was a self-proclaimed Satanist who had a history of attacking his cellmates. He was sent to Corcoran prison after attacking one of his cellmates and causing him to receive 67 stitches, and it was instructed for him to be placed alone in a cell. But in March of 2019, Luis Romero, a man who was serving life in prison for second-degree murder, was placed in the same cell as Jamie, and within 24 hours he was found dead. After Luis went to sleep, Jamie put a sheet covering the bars in the cell so no one could look in, and he decapitated Luis. He also cut out his eyes, part of his lungs, ribs, and fingers. Jamie also made a necklace with some of Luis's body parts. The guards were supposed to do routine checks but didn't bother to look behind the sheet to see what was going on. Also falsely reported that everything was okay. They said Jamie was too mentally unfit for trial and was put in a psych ward. He was also shown the crime scene photos and asked to keep them as trophies, but his request was denied.
Did you know that Chucky is a pedophile? And so is Howard the Duck. Well, not the characters, but the actor, that is. This is Hollywood actor Ed Gale, who played Howard the Duck and Chucky amongst a number of other roles in his career. And recently Ed was caught by online predator catchers. Apparently he had tried to solicit hand, oral, and possibly anal sex from a 14-year-old boy. And now, after admitting to all of this on video, Ed is under investigation. I'm going to show you a clip from Creep Catcher Unit. They're a group that catches online predators. And let me tell you, this one was especially heartbreaking because I love the Chucky film series. It also should be noted that Jeffrey Jones, the villain from Howard the Duck, is also a pedophile. We just covered his story in another TikTok a few days ago. But anyways, here's the clip.
Kid stuff with a kid. You grab another page, look at this. I also know you're still a virgin. Are you gay? Like, do you think this is appropriate to talk to a kid like this? If I grab every... Like, well, yeah, because I'm literally grabbing random pages just to show you an example of how graphic this chat is. Because you committed 2 felonies today. Do you understand that? Yes. Communicated with a minor online sexually. Yes. Can we agree on that? Did you talk sexually to a minor online, yes or no? Yes. That's a felony. Yes. Having a meeting with this kid, inviting him over to your apartment to continue to do these sexual acts is illegal. 2 felonies. Yes.
These conspiracy theories will ruin your childhood. This first theory is about the movie Frozen, and how some people believe it was created as a cover-up for how Walt Disney was cryogenically frozen and plans to be brought back to life. Because now, if you search up the words Frozen and Disney, you'll only see results from the movie. But before the movie existed, you could find more information about how Walt Disney cryogenically froze himself. It's even rumored that Walt Disney's body is hidden somewhere in Disney World. But believe it or not, this next theory is even crazier. And it's how Tom and Jerry is actually World War II propaganda. So first of all, we have to point out that the nickname for British soldiers during World War II were Tommies, and the nickname for German soldiers were Jerrys. And in almost every episode of Tom and Jerry, Tom tries to unalive Jerry, but Jerry outsmarts him, which, going by the Tommies and Jerrys association, could be a message about German intelligence. But if you still don't believe me, Tom and Jerry came out in 1940, the same year as the Battle of Britain. Let me know if you believe these theories and follow for more.
Iron Eyes Yeast presents Light Out.
Breaking news, they have found missing Johannes deceased. Authorities say on August 29th around 11:40 a.m. they received a call from a boater in San Francisco Bay. The call came in as an unconscious and unresponsive person. This was just northeast of the Golden Gate Bridge where he was last seen. Authorities say the remains showed advanced signs of decomposition along with prolonged exposure to the aquatic environment. They were unidentifiable and did not process any type of identification. However, on August 31st, they were able to identify the remains of that of Johannes. The coroner's office conducted an autopsy and determined the cause of death was from blunt impact injuries and drowning, and that his mode of death was suicide. At this time, they say there is no evidence recovered to suggest a crime has occurred. I'll keep you guys updated. What do you think? Drop in the comments.
Yes, you read that right. A doctor is actually being sued for decapitating a baby during delivery at Southern Regional Hospital in Georgia. Obviously, a trigger warning is needed for this one. The details are absolutely horrifying. He was Jessica Ross and Trevon Taylor's first baby, and obviously they were so excited for his arrival. But when Jessica went into labour at 37 weeks, the delivery became complicated. Dr. Tracy St. Julian was the one delivering the baby, and she tried different methods, including applying traction to the baby's head. She then used ridiculously excessive force to pull on the baby's head and neck, and she used that much force that the bones in his skull, face and neck actually broke. Jessica was then left for 3 hours before being taken for a C-section. The baby's head was stuck in the birth canal, and as they pulled him out through Jessica's abdomen, only his legs, body and arms came out. His head was left behind. His head was subsequently delivered naturally, and if that's all not horrifying enough, the staff then tried to cover up what had actually happened. They didn't tell Jessica and Siobhan what had happened to their baby, just that he'd sadly passed away. And they actually then wrapped him tightly in blankets with his head propped up onto his body to make it look like it was still attached. The couple had absolutely no idea that their baby had been decapitated. According to Jessica, they then tried to persuade the couple to have the baby cremated, obviously to cover up what had happened. They didn't want them finding out, and they actually did find out from the funeral home. An investigation is now ongoing, and all the staff involved will be put under oath to try and get down to the bottom of how this was allowed to happen. Obviously, no amount of money can ever bring their baby back, and the whole situation is just traumatizing. I cannot imagine what they are going through right now, but I hope that they win this case and that they can get some closure.
Guys, Ruby Franke's neighbors are spilling it all. Okay guys, so I'm back talking about Ruby Franke, who is the YouTube mom who is apparently famous for her parenting and homeschooling things that she would show on there. You guys know she just got arrested for allegations of child abuse with her business partner. If you don't know about that, I do have a couple videos. Go find those. My first one tells you all about how they found the kid that prompted this whole investigation finally. Now, my other video this morning was about her daughter, Sherry, who apparently said finally on her Instagram, and that they had been trying to report her for a while. Well, here's more from the neighbor. So a neighbor says that in September of 2022, she actually called Child Services of Utah. But when they called Franke's home, no one was there. So I guess it stopped. The neighbor goes on to say that she just wants those kids to know that they are thought of and they are loved, because she feels like that they probably thought that they were abandoned and had no hope. She says that she's actually spent so much time and tears trying to report Franke and the situation with these kids to CPS and Child Services for the past year. Now, Franke's husband, who's the father of the kids, was seen at her property on Saturday as a man had come to the house and was removing the YouTube sticker from her van. Now, another thing that the neighbor said was that she was outside pulling weeds from her lawn, and she noticed that the 8 passengers van was over there at her neighbor Jody's home, and that the kids were outside also pulling weeds. The neighbor said that, she went on as long as she could. It was upwards of 100 degrees outside and so freaking hot, and she finally couldn't take it anymore. And she noticed that even after she stopped, which was hours after being out there in the sweltering heat, the kids were still out there doing the yard work. That neighbor also said that they never heard sounds from the house that you would think that you would hear from kids being there and enjoying life. They never really heard them playing outside, doing fun things, and they just always thought that was pretty peculiar. So another resident also was quoted as saying that everybody in the neighborhood is just kind of breathing a collective sigh of relief. So it seems very apparent that people around the Frankes were on to something being wrong for quite a long time. This is just so crazy. I really think that there should be an investigation as to why Child Services had not done more sooner.
This is the most terrifying McDonald's you'll ever see. In 1986, the first floating McDonald's called the McBarge opened up. The plan was for the boat to travel around the world and for people to enjoy McDonald's everywhere. But then something crazy happened. The 5 employees that lived on the boat went crazy. They started to hear voices at night and even began hallucinating. All of this slowly started driving them insane. After 3 years of this, one fry cook decided enough was enough. She decided to end her life. Her body was discovered on this very boat the next morning. The McDonald's were forced to close and was even abandoned for over 20 years. It seemed like everyone forgot about this floating nightmare. This was the case until 2 years ago when a company decided to renovate the boat. And this article was published about renovating the boat. But a year later, there was still no news about it. And the McBarge was still abandoned. But then a couple YouTubers decided to swim and break into the McBarge. As they went around, everything was eerily silent. Like and follow for part 2.